today on PDX Black Rose, we're talking with Terrence Hayes.
Hello.
Everybody.
Hello.
So, Terrence, you officially declared your intent to run for city council
I did.
in the District 1, which is in Southeast.
Yep.
So
East
when did
Portland.
that happen?
Mm-hmm. So I officially declared about a week ago.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been putting in the footwork and just I wanted to declare in a way that didn't get in the way of other things and just made sure that I was ready and my team was ready to go.
What's Declaration Day look like?
The big day?
Yeah. What did you do?
I didn't do nothing big yet, so we're gonna do a big campaign, like a big campaign event, probably beginning the next year. For me, it was just about getting with the team, making sure we was ready, making sure we was really clear on the direction we was going and what had set us apart. So we just was together, me, the wife, the kids, and my people that's working with the campaign.
And you went downtown?
No, it's just at the house.
Oh, you just
We
online?
just at the,
You
you just declare you really. It's all about the small donor campaign set up, right? And so to make sure if you want to be a part of that, you have to put your name in the bucket. And I also didn't want to put it in too early and then start getting all the the attention or the focus before my family was ready and my company was ready. So we transitioned. My wife now runs our company to make sure I can campaign full time. And then once I'm a city councilor, part of city council, my wife, I can't have two jobs. So we had to make sure that my wife was completely supported and set up to run our company.
Okay,
That's
all
cool.
right.
I'm just real quick with Terrence. I'm super excited because a lot of my family, not just me, live on the east side. I got 80-90% of my family, uncles, cousins, all that live on that side. So they're super excited for this interview, man. Hopefully, I can get to ask some of the questions that they're asking because a lot of them are vested, have vested interest in that neighborhood. So, and the second part, man, I'm excited to see somebody from the generation that I grew up with. Right. We were talking a little bit. You went to Jeff, I went to Benson.
Nice.
But I'm super excited to see somebody from my generation representing, man. So
yeah, I'm excited too. I think that it's our time. I think we're doing a lot of leadership work, but we're not necessarily seen as leaders. And I think I'm not. I'm 40 now, so if I'm not leading, then I'm following. So, but I am following. Listen, to be really honest with you, I'm looking at the elders in the community, right? And I'm being led by the elders, and I'm having tough conversations. That's who I answer to. And so, but I am a leader now, right? At this age, at this stage in my life, I can speak honestly about our community, but I'm always checking in with the folks who back I'm standing on to be at the place I'm at.
Well, I mean, you can look at our Congress and our Senate right now, and leadership is a mess up there. I mean, one guy was flexing the other day on a witness and things like that. So when you talk about leadership, I mean, what comes to your mind? What are the basic foundational principles of leadership that you're bringing to the table?
But hold on. So can we get a little backstory before we get into that?
But I'll put that on the thing.
So can we just get a little backstory?
Yeah, we
You know what I'm
can. So Terrence, give us, where are you from? Who are you?
So I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois. Me and my father moved here. I was around 15 years old. I think I was starting to get a little too close in the gang stuff, and my dad just wanted to give me a different shot. So we moved to Portland, and part of my campaign motto was bring back the roses, right? Because when I first came to Portland, it was no place like it. It was green. It was beautiful. It was clean. It had these hills, and I think people get used to the hills, but in Chicago it's flat.
Oh, yeah.
So it had these hills, and it was green, and people actually was nice, right? I'm a project kid, so it's always kind of that struggle of surviving in poverty. And so here I came to a really flourishing city, and then my dad was able to find a really good job, and so I started going to Jeff. That was supposed to be this really bad school because black kids was there, but I didn't feel that way, right? I felt like it was a lot of love, especially as an out-of-towner. So the reason I wanted us to always talk about bringing back the roses is because when I look back to the city, that's what I see. I see Rose City. I'm excited about being part of making our city safe, clean, and affordable again.
Okay, but
is that a coined term? Bring back the rose, or
it's mine. You like that? It is mine. It's
mine.
See, we
can take that, man.
Right before somebody go run. No, it's mine. We actually put in for the trademark and all that. So it's ours.
All right. Well, we like that, right? Because we come from
Reimagine.
the perspective of the Black Rose,
right.
where representing the African American community in the city of a variety of roses. But so Terrence, but when you first landed here, you did get yourself in a little bit of trouble.
I did.
So you did leave the fire, but you ended up in the frying pan.
Right. And mainly I think because I didn't deal with the things that even attracted me to that life, right? And it got worse because when I came here from Portland has a really young black community in my perspective. And so when I came here from Chicago, it was a lot of like boasting up that I was from somewhere else in this really dangerous city. And so I played into that narrative of like, well, I'm tough, so I got to be tough and I got to live tough. And I end up going to jail for 13 years in this city. Well, I was in Ontario, Oregon, but I just bought into a false narrative about what it meant for me to be a black man, right? And that narrative cost me a lot. And so after I came home, I rejected all that, right? I reject any narrative that doesn't mean that I'm amazing, I'm powerful, I'm present, right? And any other narrative is a lie about who we are and our capability and possibility. So I just stayed out of the way. I stopped bringing harm to my community. I wasn't perfect in a human sense, but I certainly was committed to not bringing any more harm to the community. And then, so I worked, I grind, and we kind of got, we close to doing it at the next level now.
But were you able to expunge your record?
I did. So Senate Bill 819, shout out to our DA for that. Mike Schmidt did some really cool things that focused on restorative justice, and I worked with him to get some of that stuff passed. So I was the first person in Multnomah County to apply Senate Bill 92, which totally cleared my record. So I went from always having to check that box to ain't no boxes for me. So even when we talking about what's important to our community and we talk about restorative justice, if I'm not being restored to my community, it ain't no justice, right? So people use a lot of terminologies that they don't put the work in to really make sure it's working. And I really feel like I'm a prime example of what restorative justice needs to look like, which is to take the things off of my back that don't give me a chance to work freely in my community. I have to be restored back to my community first, because to be quite fair, it's where I offended at.
Yeah,
I offended inside of my community. So if you're going to restore me first back in a healthy way to that community, so I can put in the same level of work in a positive way that I put in a negative way. And again, once I do well there, I can continue to grow out and to develop our community in Portland as a whole.
Okay.
So, with that background, though, I think, it's come full circle because you're on the, what's it called? The Focused Intervention Team. You're chairing this, right? The Focused Intervention Team Community Oversight Group, which works to reduce gun violence through prevention, intervention, and response, right? So tell us how you got on that.
So, you got it. You did that research. So I'm on the FITCOG, which is the Focused Intervention Task Force. Okay. It is, I think, a better version of the gang task force, because it is all about being data focused, right? So its job is not to see a car, young black man, and predetermine that there's guns and violence in there. Its job is to take data that's already there, and if you are being called out in the community or calls against you, or you suspected to be in shootings and stuff like that, then that task force is allowed to put a focus on you. But they're not allowed to put a focus on you simply because you're black or you're around a whole bunch of black kids, right? We're not going to allow that. That narrative has to end. And so what ended up happening was Commissioner Hardesty, during that election period for her, she had an opportunity to place a few people on this FITCOG, and I was one of them. Right. I had a cool relationship with Andre Miller, and he reached out, and I thought it was one of them things that was funny, right? Because here I am with this gang background and violent background, and I have an opportunity to sit on a community oversight group. What I did love about it is, it's not that task force has a whole bunch of power to fire and hire police officers, but it has the opportunity to build healthy relationships with PPB, and that specifically the FIT team, and then challenge their perspective and narratives in our community. And in that relationship, we're able to get a lot more healthy work done.
Okay. Well, Alex, so what are you thinking about the gang violence and some of the, public safety issues that we're facing, especially over in Southeast? You mentioned a lot of your families living over there.
Yeah, so a lot of my questions are, I'm already just running through okay, what's going on the east side that I want to talk to them about? Because every time I'm driving around, I always get those ideas, you know what I'm saying? So I want to try to bring those back. But yeah, as things are getting pushed a little to the east side, we don't see the city like well, they're starting to now, but we don't see a lot of investment going on towards that side, right? So even though there's blight everywhere all over Portland, we start to see more of that over there. You know what I'm saying? Especially with the homelessness, a lot of the gang activities are more towards like Rockwood, Gresham, and then what we call the numbers like lower numbers like 120 second and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So do you see more of your work? How do you plan to kind of focus on that area a little bit more in regards to the work you're doing?
Well, one, what I love about how the new districts is set up is that it forces me to pay attention to that specific district first, because those are the voters I'll answer to, right? So what's in the best interest of those voters become my best interest first, and then holistically Portland. So I think what I bring differently is my perspective on my company did something really unique. We hire formerly incarcerated Black men and women.
Oh, wow.
That's what we focus on. So we've been really blessed that out of the 15 people we've hired, none of them have committed new violent crimes in any form or fashion, because we basically have done this. We're going to get you paid very well, and we're going to have high levels of accountability. I have to say this everywhere I go, I am over the narrative of white guilt. It has not done our community well at all, and it only placates to some level of dependency on white people instead of us being empowered as a community. So I'm looking at the community and I'm going, well, how are we gonna hold each other accountable? How are we gonna stand with each other? How are we gonna support each other? And I think we have to, if we don't want people out there doing stupid stuff, we have to create opportunity for them, and then we have to hold them accountable to that moment. So when I look at the East, I've already been putting in that work even before it was any political reason to do so, because I just believe in our ability to be great, right? And I believe in that community as a whole, but I think it's so much focus on like gun violence, and most of it is young Black men. So I just feel like if I pay you well, I'll work your butt 8 to 10 hours, you're going to want to go home and sit down somewhere, right? You're not going to have the energy, but again, it puts it back in their hands. I'm not placating, I'm not babying adult men and women, right? I expect them to take advantage of what I'm putting on the table and do well, but I don't force you to. Right? If you, when I hire folks, the first thing I say, if I hear you're committing harm in our community, I'm gonna fire you, consequence or not. I'm not gonna sit up and pay you very well to go do harm to the same community that I was restored to, and gave me another chance at being worth something.
So, Terrence, obviously not everybody has the same perspective in Portland on how we should proceed. So let's stay on public safety for a minute. And I mean, you have a company that's, doing, I'm sure you're doing some graffiti removals, and maybe houseless camps or cleanups and things like that. And I agree with Alex. I don't know why the East Side, whether it's Southeast or Northeast, seems to be getting all of the, the camps are being organized around, our side. I don't see the West Side necessarily burdening the same responsibility for, getting these folks into safe spaces and homes, right? All those camps are along Columbia, on that kind of stuff. It doesn't feel fair.
Well, because they've been having a representation the whole time. Think about it. We vote less in the East than any other part of Portland.
Is that right?
So during voting time, all I have to do is placate to Northwest, Southwest, and the voters and some voters in Northeast. If I can get those individuals to show up for me, then I win. Yeah. And then what I do as a politician, I just keep placating to what's important to them. So you don't see the same narrative playing out in more affluent parts of Portland, because we don't have, they have representation, they have demands, and they have leverage. We haven't historically have it. So part of what I want to do is make sure whoever come out of East Portland with me, Lord willing, it's me, but whoever come out of East Portland with me, then we're going to work on making sure that we have the same voice at the table. So when developers and folks like that is talking about houses, community and houses camps, well, I'm going to remind everybody that we have multiple ones already. And at some point, it can't just be our problem to sustain them, to support them, and to make sure those communities stay safe and healthy at a risk of our community than other parts. And if developers can't convince other parts and other districts to get involved in this, and politicians can't either, then we're going to oppose that. And we don't, and it's not opposing because we don't care about the houses community. Clearly we care, because they're getting the most support out of our community. But it's not our burden alone. These is people that need to be loved and cared for by every district in Portland, not just ours, but we haven't had a voice. I'm going to be that voice. I'm going to stand up and say there has to be balance. There has to be consistency. And our community is not going to be the only community that bears the burden of our houseless, our folks that don't have homes. We'll love them. We'll stand with them. We'll continue to be there. But y'all going to have to bear it with us. And I'm afraid, to be honest, that if we don't pick the right candidates, then they're just going to still allow us to be burdened and it be a heavy load on us and our families without holding other parts of Portland accountable.
Well, the thing is, I'm super excited to hear that, man, because like on the east side, we always kind of feel like we've been left out. Yeah. And I'll be honest, man, like when I was growing up here, we never really crossed 82nd too much. But now, you know what I'm saying? Because it was like, that was
right.
That's like, Southeast. Yeah, like the Lion King, you don't go over there with the
shadow touches.
Yeah, you don't touch where the shadow touches, So now that we're starting to go over there, we're starting to build that community, but we don't feel like the love. Like if you look at some of these like TIF district maps, I think on the border they got the historic Park Roads, and I think J District might be a part of that. But outside of that, there's no real push for economic development, and there's always been this vibe of, well, that's not incorporated Portland vibe still. Like, we're not about Portland, you know what I'm saying? So we're looking for economic development over there, but it's coming slow. I mean, like, you look at that Fred Meyer over there. It's like a whole SWAT team in there at the Gateway Fred Meyer, Safeway shut down because the theft was too much, you know what I mean? Which, again, is a problem with all of Portland.
Kmart burned down? Is that in the district
Kmart burnt down,
all
so it's just like...
right? Yeah. Walmart's.
Yeah, so we see a lot of that, like the thefts, the robberies, and there's just no retail there. I mean, we can go down the list, you know what I'm saying? It's a food desert out there. Sure. We ain't got no good food. Like, there's a lot of issues down there, you know what I mean? So... East Portland is super excited to have somebody that has a voice, and I'm a big fan of this new restructuring for how we're going to do it, man. So hopefully we get something out of it.
Are you a big fan of it?
Right.
You think? Yeah. Obviously Portland votes of it, and you see some opportunity in the new government system.
Only if our district can hold its candidates accountable. I feel like a lot of folks is going to run to our district that ain't really been in our district or really still with our district because they feel it's weaker. I don't really look at it like that. I feel like it's untapped and it needs to be treated better. So when we lose, I always feel like because of the extremities in politics, there's nobody calling out balance, right? Nobody is saying, as much as I want to make sure that people who struggle with addiction is treated like a human, I also don't believe they get to mishandle businesses or people in those communities. And I think we take extremes. I think we go, well, because I care about the mental health associated with addiction, I gotta free anybody from accountability if they have that struggle. I disagree with that. I don't think you get free from accountability. I think that we have to continue to humanize you even in the system, and we have to make sure the system is giving you a shot when you come home to be restored to your community. But again, remember, when you harm, you usually harm in your community. Yeah. So we basically is saying that in order to protect one class of people in our community, we're willing to bring harm to another class. I reject that notion. Yep. I think we can do both. I think we can have public safety and still humanize people that have mental health struggles or addictions.
Well, let's talk about that in a minute, and then I want to move to small business. And Alex is our small business navigator coach at the Soul District. Nice. But before we move on to, let's talk about the big measure 110, okay? That's all over the place.
Kind of hinted at it right there.
And so I think as an organization that represents small businesses, we know that small businesses disproportionately bear the burden of standing up most of the state in terms of its social service investment. Not that we don't need social service. Obviously, we do. People need affordable housing. People need access to care, medical care. They need access to food. I mean, the DHS system, has saved so many families. I was a single mom that used that food stamp card, and it was a blessing. We felt full in more than just one way, so it did take away the burden. But as you said, sometimes the disproportionate focus on one thing kind of takes off your focus on the other. And I think what we've seen here at the Soul District is there's a ton of resources going in through Measure 10. The fact that, and some people have tried to ban daytime camping. We've got small businesses who they've got folks defecating in their backyards.
Right.
They have to now lock their doors during business hours because people are just walking in, taking things off the counter.
Right.
We've got tagging going on. We've got, just a lack of police response, a lack of, we're not prosecuting, we're giving homeless people tickets. I'm not sure where they're supposed to pay that and with what, right?
Right.
It's just insane.
Right.
It's becoming insane, right? And what would you do about that?
That's heavy. So I will say this, because I think it's all intertwined, right? The impact on small business, the impact on community, impact on residents. I think the intention on Measure 110 was really cool. I think what they wanted to do is they wanted to set up something that humanizes the addiction and set up alternatives to incarceration. Unfortunately, one of the things I think they did really wrong was execution, right? They didn't get buy-in from the same PPB, Portland Police Bureau. They didn't get buy-in. They actually leveraged 110 as if it was a contrary notion to healthy policing. We're frustrated with the police. We're going to teach everybody a lesson. So here's Measure 110. You don't get to arrest nobody no more for these issues. And then I think the police went, okay, hands up. We're fine. You don't want us touching it. We're not going to touch it.
Being arrested used to be rock bottom.
Right.
And now it's just don't worry about
Right.
being arrested.
So
Here's a ticket.
Right. So I think what happened is police went from 4,000 arrests a year for possession, right, to 400 referrals a year under Measure 110. So I think there was an immediate buyout from the Portland Police Bureau. I think because we created a narrative where Measure 110 stood contrary to how we view safety, police said no, right? We're not going to put the same energy into it. So I think we should have put PPB at the table in a more healthy way. I really do. I think we should have had expectations of the same amount of energy that they put into busting people for possession that they put into referrals. Now, there is a truth that we all need to say is that referrals doesn't make people do anything different. If somebody wants to use writing them a ticket, they're not showing up for that. It's unrealistic. So I even go back to execution. People have continued to make the rules and make the laws that have not been impacted or don't have lived experience. They keep us out the table of decision making because they're comfortable with us out of it, right? So they say, okay, we're going to create Measure 110 because I feel like the middle class white woman she felt really good about it, and George Floyd and all the other things that was happening.
Right.
They kind of took the reins and took a lot of voices of community members away, and they championed this stuff, and they felt really good. And then when we couldn't walk downtown anymore, when our kids have to walk through fentanyl clouds, now people going, maybe that wasn't the best. Well, you didn't have the right people at the table.
No.
You didn't have the right champions that been doing the work at the table. So Measure 110 was not executed, in my opinion, in a healthy way.
And it is getting some significant funding, right? We talk about this
Yes.
too. So, and then let's turn to small business, Alex, and I'd love you for you to lead this. Is we fought with Representative Janelle Bynum and some other folks trying to peel off some of that cannabis equity tax statewide. I know we got the local Portland one, so we could talk about reimagine Oregon or whatever that funds that are stuck in nowhere zone. But then this cannabis equity one, right? So that cannabis tax, I think when it started out was like 60 million, then it went to 78 million. And that's where the Oregon Health Authority and stuff sort of grabbed it. They got their big lobbyists out in New York to come in and said, nobody take our money from us, which is ironic because, that tax was originally supposed to stand up people that were disproportionately affected by cannabis laws, right? And
interesting how that works.
So I guess, it goes to now we're using drugs to get people off of drugs, drug money to get people off of drugs. But, and I'm not sure those were the same people passing that cannabis, legalization too. So again, irony, right? But so they got their money, 78 million. Now that's growing to 125. They expect by 2025 to be 178 million. So our organization stepped to the plate with them and said, we want to peel off in the business equity grant system that Business Oregon had put out for the last 2 years, there were $56 million in ask for organizations to help provide technical support, micro grants, et cetera, for small businesses. And there were $56 million in ask, but they were only able to give out $18 million. And of course, that went, and then there was another $5 million. But so obviously the need is great. The small businesses are paying into the system. They're paying their taxes. They're buying cannabis, right? Because it's so damn stressful running a business that you got to take a token of smoke every once in a while, right? And but they're not getting this equal investment back. So what will you do to fight for small businesses to ensure that, and particularly Black-owned small business, to make sure that they're getting, their equity in investment?
Right. Well, I think we have to continue to call a spade a spade. Black struggle has been leveraged in politics in our country for 40 or 50 years now, right? Each party continues to use the Black narrative to push whatever narrative they want to push. So we have to get to the table first. Black folks have to not be afraid to be at the table and demand equity and demand a voice in this space. So one of the first things I want to do is just call a spade a spade. We need to be at the table. We need equity. We need to hold folks that have these fancy titles accountable, and we need to demand that Black folks also stop leveraging their pigmented skin to get position without caring for Black people in the next stage. So it has to be some outer community accountability and definitely some inner community accountability. I want to see the Black community empowered and at those tables. That's why it's so important for me to be, in my opinion, at the table, is because I bring the elders with me. I bring the people that done the work with me. I bring brothers that don't mind if you know me and I'm in City Hall, like, you should be comfortable coming knocking on that glass door that's seem to be so hard to get in, but is about the people, right? So I think people are going to be comfortable with coming and being honest with me about their struggles, and then me being accountable to that and bringing it to the table. I think we need to create grant opportunities that don't put a lot of roadblocks ahead. Yes. There are community-based organizations that are doing some amazing work in all fields, right? Especially Black-led CBOs that don't always get a voice, or they create these very complicated grant processes that if you don't find a white person who's seen them, right, or understand them, usually we're intimidated by them immediately. So I always say this, like, leave your white guilt at the table. Leave your white guilt at the door. I don't even want to see it. What I would love to see is that folks out of the white community that love and care about the Black struggle bring that privilege to the table and that help us have wins. So if you have the skill sets, bring them to small CBOs, help us win those grants, help us get the money going. And that way, when we run through these small snippets of grants, we then as a community and so people outside of the community that support us can go, no, put the other $50 million at the table. So for me, it's all about making sure that our voice is there and that we're demanding more out of our representation and our representatives. And then we, as the people who have that authority, are being held accountable and doing it, right? And then if they don't do it, we get rid of them.
And Alex, so hold on. Let's stay on this small business thing because, I just feel like, I think about like the national politics. They always talk about coming across the aisle. And I don't know that it's so much coming across the aisle in terms of Democratic, Republican and stuff. To me, it's these giant bureaus that we have, these Oregon health authorities, these, and these aren't the bureaus I'm not saying that they're bad, but the complexity of navigating them so that the incredible amount of resources that folks like that get, that Metro gets, that Port of Portland, on and on, that you can see is do you feel, Alex, that it's trickling down to the small businesses that we're helping? What do you got for Terrence on that?
My thing is prior to working in the nonprofit world, I've been working with Soul District as a business navigator for the last year. And my job is to help them navigate those things. And prior to that, I was in the private sector, was in banking, two different worlds. And coming in, I thought it would be a smooth transition. Right. But man, even still working with that organization and trying to navigate those is difficult. So in my head, I can only imagine how much more tougher it could be. You're trying to run a business administer your business and all that, and then trying to figure out where all these resources are. You know what I'm saying? So I can only imagine how tough it is.
Right.
And then just keeping it still biased on the east side, because I got to keep it on the east
Let's
side,
talk
man.
East side.
Because hey, man, they send me over here,
right,
man. So
right.
so we got there's over 500 black owned businesses in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
About 40% of them are within 2 to 3 miles of MLK.
Nice.
So,
well,
in the soul, in the heart of Portland, or as John likes to say, the soul of Portland. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So they're all still here, but a lot of those people still live on the east side, or I still see a lot of people needing support for their business, even though it's on the east side, and still coming here. So this is still the heart of Portland, but how do you see us coming to a place where we can bring that support to those small places, to the east side? You know, not that we don't want them to keep coming over here. You know, and we still work with them. We support them as much as we can.
Yeah, we're the soul of Portland, right?
Right.
Not just the soul of Northeast Portland.
Right.
We're the soul of Portland.
Right. I think the hard part about it is Portland has been the heart of the black community for so long that it's hard for us to look up one day and say it ain't ours no more.
Yeah.
It's really tough, right? And I think that even when they say come back, and you alluded to that, come back, all that stuff has stipulations because it's still all codependency, right? We want you to buy in North Portland, but you can't take equity out of your home. You can't do, you can't do all the things that home ownership allows us to leverage for wealth.
We won't be building single family homes.
We won't be doing any of those,
You gotta live
right?
there for 50 years.
You gotta live there for 50 years.
Yeah.
You can't put, like, why am I going to buy a house that I can't pull equity out of to buy another home or to invest?
And majority American wealth is in the home, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So yeah.
Well, you got
Part of
10
your
years
wealth
of paying mortgage so you can pull that equity out one day and do something else, right? And so remodel your home to increase the value, buy another home. And so all those reinvestment programs, again, they're all, to me, connected to white guilt without black voices. And I think because they will continue to look in a way oppressive. Yes. Because how many people that understand property will get committed to something that you can't pull equity out, can't build on, can't do anything with? When you understand what property is supposed to do to build your wealth, you only buy property with that in mind, right? The lie of any American dream that's simply home ownership for the sake of has kicked people in the butt a long time, but people that build wealth off of real estate understands how to leverage all aspects of real estate. So even quote unquote bringing black people to North and Northeast Portland is a trap, because you just paying rent, right? And if I'm 30, right? I'm 40 now, but during that time, that's when they were talking about. I'm 40. If I get into one of those places now, they're saying, 30, 40, 50 years, that means I'm 90.
Right.
Yeah.
Consider that. Yeah. And what that means is that by the time I'm free to do anything, my grandkids gonna be waiting me out, right? Can't wait for me to go because they have all this in there.
And that was done under the guise of we're trying to create stability that didn't exist before. But then you're saying you don't have the people at the table that need to be there.
Well, it's like none of the bureaus, like, they kind of just run through with, like, we've got the green light to this, let's go forward. But we're also having this problem here, and you have it over in your county where, again, just like the houseless camps, right? The affordable housing is disproportionately all being built in North and Northeast and East counties, right? And because of the prevailing wage, right? So they wouldn't let commercial corridors, even small commercial corridors, be built. So there's these community rooms that all just stand empty. And we're choking out the commercial enterprises in half of these systems, and the residents aren't getting any services. So it's just like, okay, you've got affordable housing now.
But let me just say this before even we get close to being done. Any concept of affordable housing that's codependent on the government is a trap. Affordable housing works when you help them gain the wealth and the resources to afford housing, right? We keep talking about affordable housing as if we don't like to just say projects. That's why they go into poor communities, because we've always built projects in poor communities. What I'm talking about when I'm talking about affordability, when I say safe, clean, and affordable, I'm talking about jobs. I'm talking about living wage jobs. I'm talking about encouraging young people out of the community to consider construction and all the good things that come out of that. If if you don't want to go to college. So I don't want affordability that's dependent forever and just create more fancy projects. I want people to be able to stand on their own, right? Even if I'm going to give you a hand up, eventually I have to connect you to the resource and ability to stand on your own. I am over the notion that the key for the Black community is codependency on the government. It hasn't worked historically. I'm a project kid, right? Yeah. And eventually what happens is they just come in when the property value is really low. They get rid of all of us. They push us somewhere else, and then we're all just in another circle of gentrification, and it doesn't work. I want the community to be empowered. I want us to have entrepreneurship. I want our businesses to flourish. I want us to not be afraid to open businesses in the communities that we exist in now, right? Yeah. And I want us to have success in that. I don't want to run back to predominantly white areas and hope they choose to visit our restaurants and our food courts.
Well, last question, Terrence, because we're running out of time here. Yeah. And Alex, I want you to be a part of this conversation. Is so we've got that tax abatement or that tax law that the city is putting out. So they want to attract people back to the downtown core, which includes part of Lloyd Center and a part of Lloyd or Albina, right? Because regardless if you're in the east side, the west side, the north side, or whatever, you can see that our city is in trouble, right?
For sure.
We've got major
everywhere.
Companies
Empty,
leaving, and and we are funded on those taxes, right? And those aren't going to be there because those companies aren't there anymore, right? So, and now they're talking about, some of the industries like the sporting industries and the entertainment industries are actually still bringing people in from out of town. We were at a place where Alaska Airlines was saying, their flights, leaving Portland are good, but coming into Portland, no good. What do you see that this city needs to, build back better?
What we need to do to bring back the roses?
Yeah, what do we got to bring back the roses?
I think we do have to focus on three things. I think, again, it's clean, safe, and affordable. I think we have to invest in cleaning our community back up. We have to make sure. I love the thought of taking small firms, small community-based firms, right, and giving them the resources to be part of cleaning our city up. And what they'll do is they'll hire out of these smaller communities, which will create living wage jobs. And I think we all know that when people do well economically, they don't commit crimes. And I'll connect that to safety, right? Clean, safe, and affordable. We have to invest in businesses that can invest in their communities because they speak the language of their communities, and then they can help build people out of their communities, which always bring crime down in those communities. And then I think, again, affordable. I think it's all tied in. I think when we protect our companies and protect our businesses, that then people make better money and our communities do well. We failed in wanting to protect one class of people, we attacked another class of people. I don't care if you like rich people or not. The fact of the matter is we have rich people, not we, because I ain't rich at all, but wealthy people bring
you have a rich mind.
I'm trying to get there. I want to I want to have high levels of wealth one day. But rich
you got to join my book club.
Right.
How to get rich.
Oh, I'm rich.
Okay.
And I know it. So let me say this: we want a bit. We got to bring folks like yourself into the community, and we have to empower you to teach the community, right? Your voice have to be there. And because I'm not an economic specialist, I have to take folks like you and help groom the community. But I think we have to stop the demonization of big companies because there's a lot of small companies, small people that work for these big firms. And now we have hundreds of people without jobs when Target leaves and Walmart leaves, and that will increase crime in our community.
Yeah, I mean, just before we cut it out, that what she's talking about, the tax incentive that they want to pass, you got to have minimum of 15 employees. So when we're talking about big companies, what does a 15 employee company look like? A lot of small businesses in this area don't have 15 employees.
And the tax credit don't answer for me how I'm going to afford to get in there in the first place. All they're doing is they're pretty much saying decent sized businesses will be supported if they come back downtown. In most small companies that don't apply to, and I still don't have $3,000 a month if you're going to cover the other $7,000.
We got somebody coming to answer those questions next week.
Yeah. Andrew Fitzpatrick, we'll get those questions asked, Matthew.
man.
Well, I'll listen because I want to know too.
Yeah.
Okay, so if people want to donate to your campaign, Terrence Hayes, where can they do that? How can they get behind you?
So we just got our QR code, so I'll make sure I get it to you. I don't know if y'all can post it, and then we ain't even like we really grassroots, right? So I finally got somebody that's gonna do the website, and as soon as they do, I'll shoot it out to y'all. Just keep an eye on me.
Was there a phone number they should call?
Yeah,
in
call.
The
You
meantime?
You can call me 503-891-7718. I will send you my QR code for support. And then our website will be up soon. But if you want to support me, call me. I'll send it to you. Text me. I'll send it to you. We're gonna do the work.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you, Terrence Hayes, running for District 1 for City Council.
Yep.
So, yeah, keep an eye on him.
Keep an eye on me. Appreciate it. Subscribe to PDX Black Rose and Flossin Media TV.
Yeah.